Hello, welcome back to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the first Mulliner and Musgrove show of 2026, and it's an absolute pleasure to welcome back to the podcast Sam Mulliner. Sam, welcome back. You had a good time of it?
Yeah, I was really lucky this festive time that I had a week off work, which is never ever happened before. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. We had a great time with the wife and kids, and it was yeah, it was lovely.
Good to have you back. Good to have you've had a good time of it as well. And you kind of set up for you. We're in your kitchen this time around. Usually we're in your living room, but you've had a change of scenery.
Yeah, I didn't see it as a big deal, but it must be massive news. Is this the best you've got? Is this how quiet it is? Is this how quiet the January transfer window is going to be? That the big story is I've moved into my kitchen.
Yes, yes, I think it just might be. I mean, it is really quiet across the board, not just Newcastle United, but like across the Premier League. There's not really been any big rumours. Obviously, Brennan Johnson's headed to Crystal Palace, which I think is a good deal, by the way. But other than that, there's not even many rumours to discuss. It's a good job that we're doing an episode titled "The Realistic January Transfer Hopes for Newcastle United," isn't it?
Yeah, we've done it. Finished. That's yeah. Everyone's getting sacked. That's why it's all so quiet. Everyone's losing their jobs. What can you say? Yeah, Man United and Chelsea both looking for new managers. Obviously Celtic as well, but it's the two ridiculous clubs in the Premier League just carry on being ridiculous.
Yes, I mean, Chelsea have appointed their new manager, Liam Rosenior, on a 6-year deal. I'm happy for him.
How are you pronouncing Rossinia, by the way?
Senior, well, do you know, I wasn't sure. Rosenior, there we go. 6
Yeah,
years.
you not heard of his dad, Leroy?
Someone mentioned this on social media, and I haven't yet had to go and Google, and I will
How
do.
old are you?
Well, probably old enough to remember, but I don't recall him.
Shocking.
But
Shocking.
yes, 6 years, which is quite something. I mean, fair play to his agent.
Well, is that just a continuation from his contract at Strasbourg?
Maybe we don't know the ins and outs. Good luck to him. Obviously, decent enough job at Hull. Shouldn't have been sacked there. Done a great job at Strasbourg. Clearly, Strasbourg fans are a little bit angry at how things have gone on, and that's understandable. But it's going to be interesting to see how he does get on at Chelsea. And obviously, the other sacking is Ruben Amorim, and Eddie Howe inevitably been linked to the job, but he shut down speculation in his press conference ahead of the Leeds United game. Asked about the speculation and link to the Manchester United job, he was asked if anything could tempt him away from St James's Park, and he said, "No, not at this current time. The most important thing for me is happiness in the role, happiness in the job, the relationships that I have with people around me. That has not always been consistently good. Things can change at any football club, but I'm very happy at the moment." So there we go, Eddie Howe, as we understood it anyway, not going anywhere, not leaving Newcastle United, especially not for Manchester United. You can understand, Sam, why the links were made because he is arguably the best English coach around. But very happy that he's just taken that moment to shut off that speculation straight away.
Where did this speculation come from?
The good old social media.
Well, it was never really genuine then. It's like the same guff that's linking Unai Emery to the job. It's just ridiculous. It's not going to happen. Um, Again, you are going to Manchester United or Chelsea to do one thing, and that is to cash out. So whoever they get, crack on. I'm not really bothered.
Well, I'm going to just ask you one final question because I would like to get your viewpoint on this before we get into the dream, realistic Newcastle United January transfer window. There's been a few articles and a few videos from Gary Neville, for example, about appointing someone with the DNA of Manchester United. And there's been another article that I read on ESPN about how they need to go for someone who's experienced and can handle the job. Who is out there? I mean, who fits that bill? I can't think of a manager who ticks both those boxes.
You are so blatantly leading me down the path to say Steve Bruce.
I'm not.
You are so yes, you are. Don't play innocent with me. You are desperately experienced, know the club's DNA. Yeah, Steve Bruce. Well, I'm sure it'll be one of their other mates for the rest of the season, and then I don't know. Could they be waiting for Tuchel in the summer? That remains to be seen. If I was Thomas Tuchel, I'd run. But yeah, I mean, if they are waiting for Tuchel, he didn't like working under those conditions at Chelsea, so it's a similar scenario to Maresca. Yeah, give it Roy Keane or Steve Bruce or one of their other mates till the end of the season. Although I have heard, I like your speculation that Ollie Gunnar Solskjaer is going back there to the end of the season. So who knows? I'll just re-emphasize, I don't really care.
I mean, I'd be all for that appointment because it would go so disastrously wrong. But why on earth would you make that appointment? He failed the last time out. I've seen Nicky Butt and Paul Scholes, and I'll have to go back and just double check they weren't joking. But they were asked about Roy Keane taking the job, and they said, "Yeah, give it to him." It's like the man who
And they
hasn't.
said with Steve, they said I saw the same clip, but they said put Steve Bruce with him as well.
I mean, look, you can say Steve Bruce has got the DNA of Manchester United, but in terms of ticking the box of a serial managerial winner in terms of trophies, he's never done that. He's not that man. But then I can't think of anyone who is. I mean, you go for someone like Conte, but he's likely to kick up a fuss after a wee while. Poch isn't a serial winner, good manager, but not a man with loads of trophies in his
And he's
back
not
pocket.
available.
And yeah, World Cup coming up. It's it's a difficult time to be appointing a manager, even if you wait till the summer for a club like Manchester United. It's going to be a fascinating watch to see who they do get.
Yeah. I mean, you could stick an Ancelotti in that list as well, but obviously he's Brazil coach at the minute, and World Cup is quickly approaching, so there's that. So it's yeah, there's not a lot of world is out there. There is one, but that I would like to be in charge of Newcastle one day. That's currently without work at the moment. However, um, I want to see Eddie Howe turn it round because I would rather him stay and sort it out than go back to square one and us ourselves being a mess where we have to change manager. I'm absolutely a-okay, and I think that he had every right to be questioned about certain things. Turning it back onto a Newcastle standpoint, that is absolutely fine because I had a lot of questions as well. There's been some appalling games this season where we're not learning from our mistakes, and that was epitomised in the derby, and also the second half against Chelsea as well. I thought was equally poor. Um, but I desperately want Eddie Howe to turn it round. And we've got a favourable run of fixtures now. We've got a good couple of wins. Not wholly simplistic, but the upcoming fixtures, Leeds won't be a foregone conclusion. They're in great nick at the moment. Leeds, Wolves, because we did so well against that Derby side. That got 4 points off us out of there. What was it, 9 or something like that, or 11 points? Some of the, yeah. I'm not looking forward to that game, and then Villa as well, who are also flying under Emery. I mean, why would he want to leave Villa? I do not know, but yeah, the Man United and Chelsea are in a hole, but their ownership at the end of the day want yes men, and managers are right to stand their ground. But managers like Eddie Howe was a bit chirpy when asked these questions. I loved it. Shows a bit of spirit, a bit of attitude. I liked it. And I liked the fact that he was asked the question as well. There's nothing wrong with that. I was beginning to have my doubts, but look, as I maintain, I want to see him turn this around, and he is in the process of doing so. And he has to be backed in January because where the area where I really do have sympathy for Eddie Howe has been above him for the last 18 months. It's been an absolute shambles.
Yeah, obviously with all the outgoings and Dan Ashworth, then Paul Mitchell, and obviously they didn't see eye to eye. Darren Eales heading out of Manor Staveley, my dad Cadusi. So it has been turbulent, but hopefully with the appointments that they've got now in place with Ross Wilson and Dave Hopkinson, we can have a bit of stability and everyone can kind of be pulling in the right direction because that's only going to benefit the club and help them become successful on a more consistent basis, which is what we want. And obviously, we went quite a few windows without an incoming, and we saw a bit in the summer, a bit more money spent, and that's led us up to this path to January and what happens now this month, because I think it's clear Newcastle United do need some incomings in quite a few positions, but it is the January transfer window where you always pay more for your targets. Then you've got this Saudi tax, which is a real thing because selling clubs see Newcastle United come in and instantly want a little bit more. I personally can't see too much happening from an incoming point of view, as much as I think Newcastle probably do need maybe three signings in various positions. I just don't know if A, the right player is there, and B, as Eddie Howe mentioned last week, that anything that's done in January takes away from what can be done in the summer. And maybe they'll look at it and think, well, actually, we've got enough with everyone fit and firing to get through to the summer, hopefully with European football to come again next season. And then we can spend more money, maybe at a better and fairer price because you haven't got the January taxation and improve the squad then.
Yeah, I mean, look, I haven't been broadly speaking, and the two Germans aside, who have been fantastic, I've pretty much hated our transfer business over the last 12 months, 12, 18 months. I think it's been an absolute disaster. That's where I don't have sympathy with Eddie Howe, because the recruitment has been after it being so tremendous at the opening stages of the takeover. Sorry, I think it's been slightly poorer over the last 12, 18 months, and that's left us in a hole where, if you believe the reports, that we can sign one player this window without having to sell, but after that one sort of player, we have to sell to buy. And when you've just sold a player for 125, 130 million, that should never be the case. We tremendously overpaid in the summer. We were very amateur in the summer when it came to transfer dealings. We knew Wilson was probably going to leave. We should have wrapped up transfer signings long before we had to do two on deadline day. It was shambolic, but again, that does link into where I have sympathy for Howe, and that it took so long to replace Darren Eales. It took everything that was going around with Mitchell and everything. The players themselves, they went for Premier League proven, which obviously haven't worked out with any of them thus far. That doesn't mean you can get on their backs and get into their DMs on social media, which is just stupid beyond all belief, including the incident. And I was a huge fan of the statement Newcastle put out in support of Joe Willock yesterday. That doesn't just that sort of stuff just doesn't help anyone. We know there are players that are tremendously underperforming at the moment. One of which was Joe Linton, who since his reintroduction to the team has given me a lot of heart. Again, if they're in a bad patch of form, that doesn't make them a bad player. But yes, we go back to the summer where I was dead against Anthony Elanga. I was in favour of Jacob Ramsey, but he just hasn't looked interested whatsoever at the moment, and that comes of an area of the pitch where we sort of now need to reinvest as well, because we could do with some extra attacking edge in that midfield. Because whilst we did a podcast a couple of months ago emphasizing the importance of our wingers, we're relying so much on Bruno from midfield. He's our joint top scorer this season. This is a player that doesn't score much. He says himself it's not his game, and we're relying on him. Where we would be without Bruno this year, over the past 12, 18 months, I shudder to think, because he's been head and shoulders above, big goals at big times, big performances in there. And he's taken that captain's mantle, which shocked me, and I wasn't a particular fan of at the time, but he's grown into that role so well, and he's an inspirational figure now. At a point where, if you look at some of the players we've lost over the last couple of years, some big characters. I'm not advocating that we should have given Matt Ritchie a 10-year deal, despite the song of the time, but it's a big character to lose in the dressing room. The same could be said for Sean Longstaff. And it's hard to replace those type of players, not because of their sort of impact on the pitch, but off it as well. So that's what makes the transfer window so difficult, because you're not just buying a player on the pitch. You're buying a human being who has to be right for the workplace environment and have a positive effect in and around the club.
I mean, just on the summer transfer window and the opinion of overpaying, I would argue that given the market, and you look at the Chelsea winger who went to Arsenal, and you look at Kudus who went from West Ham to Tottenham, all around the same kind of price point that Newcastle paid for Anthony Elanga. I would argue that Johan Wissa, okay, yes, Newcastle maybe have paid 10, 15 million over the top, but again, a Premier League proven striker in this market, unfortunately, that's just the price that these players do fetch. It's not necessarily a case of Newcastle overpaying because, in your words, you think they've been amateur. I think it's a case that they're overpaying because that's what the market dictates. And for too long, really, under the previous ownership, we sat there and we criticised them for just playing stupid games, really, for going for players and then lowballing them with offers that were never going to get accepted. And this summer, whether you agree on the personnel or even the business itself, I think one thing you can't argue with is that when they needed to bring players in, when they needed to make the right offer to get accepted, they did do. And I think it's about looking at it and getting the right balance, in my opinion. And maybe it's more the stupidity of the market rather than mistakes from the ownership, because I still think Anthony Langer will come good. Yes, it's taken far too long. I think Jacob Ramsey still has potential. I think you mentioned a good point. It's about backing these players because that's what they need. They need support. Yes, we can criticize. Yes, we can ask questions, just like you can do with Eddie Howe at times. But the important thing is to be constructive and to support these guys. Because look, Nick Voldemort, you could argue, went through a bit of a sticky patch, not scoring goals. He needs support. It's all about United. It's in the clue. So I I don't agree with your assessment of the summer transfer window. I think it's also very fine margins because it's very easy for a player not to settle, and it's easy for a player to hit the ground running. And it's a flip of a coin sometimes.
No, the summer transfer window was so damaging. That summer transfer window, yes, I know it was impacted by a player who wanted to leave, but and I get that, but that was still a huge opportunity missed, and there was masses of money wasted. The only we talk about Elanga, that was the only deal we were massively proactive on, and Elanga. So, like, I don't think he'll come good. You know this. We spoke about it all summer. I don't think he's the right fit for us. Doesn't mean he's a terrible player. He can go and be successful elsewhere. I don't think he's right for us. I don't think he'll come good. However, when he is on the pitch, and I am in St James's Park or away game or wherever, I am not going to be booing him. I'm not going to be sighing every time he emerges off the bench or whatever to come and play. He's wearing the black and white shirt. We need him to try and perform and do well and get some assists, of which he's got one at the moment. That's those are the differences. You don't it's not going to help getting in their DMs, giving them grief, giving them booing them before they've even started. But yeah, there's plenty of avenues to vent frustration. This is mine. So look, I still think we need to be looking at right wing. I think we need a centre mid. I'm really confused about why we are going in for a left-sided centre back, which looks to be our one area of strengthening this window. That to me says Botman's off in the summer. I don't know about you, because we're stacked with Botman and Byrne as left-sided centre backs. Shares filling in there at the moment is doing all right. Obviously, if Lascelles wasn't injured, he's filled in there as well, most notably against PSG a couple of years ago. But he's probably on the way out. Kraft's probably on the way out. Share and Trippier, could they have one more year potentially? Maybe they'll get moved on. It remains to be seen. They're 34, 35, 36, whatever. I find it odd. Yes, we need a backup cover or competition for Lewis Hall at left back, but the fact they're targeting more of a centre back, like a Dan Burn figure in essence, that can play left back. I mean, everyone has their views about Dan Burn at left back or whatever. I just find it bizarre that that's the one area we're going on when our kind of failings this season have come in the final third. I don't get it. We need someone of an attacking ilk. If we sell Willock, which could well be on the cards to a London-based team, whether it's Palace, Fulham, whoever, or whether there's an option if Asula does leave as well, to strengthen then, or like you say, you wait until the summer. But you have to be proactive in these things. We spoke about Endrick in the summer. He's gone on loan to Lyon. Bang, done. Well done, Lyon. You've got a cracking player there that can really influence the second half of your season in Ligue 1, because they were sort of dipping below expectations somewhat, and Ligue 1 is very competitive this year. Lens are top of the table at the moment. All right, PSG are a point off them, but still. So yeah, there are deals out there if you are proactive enough, which which we're just not.
You mentioned there a few positions where you think Newcastle United need to consider. Is that considering those positions for this window? Because I think you've been very optimistic, if so.
Yeah. And a lot of it is trying to undo the mess caused by the summer, to be honest. If you get, like I said on the last episode I was in a few weeks ago, if you're going to buy a goalkeeper, buy a goalkeeper. Stop messing around with average players that are no better than what we've already got. People have started waking up about Ramsdale, which is nice. And look, as soon as Pope got fit again, he's straight back in the team. If you're going to buy a goalkeeper, buy a goalkeeper. I've seen the links with Kobel, who I think is probably one of the best, and I think he's still so underrated. I think he's the best goalkeeper in the world. One of them, Kobel at Dortmund. I think he's phenomenally good. And he doesn't. He's still sort of under the radar in the goalkeeping stakes side of things. I think he's fantastic. I saw the links with Restes as well from Toulouse. I wouldn't be against that. Really good young goalkeeper. And the lad from Toulouse is sort of the name that we've been linked with, isn't it? Mithali, that kind of left back. He's 19 years old, but he himself has just come back from a nasty injury. So it's got me scratching my head. But yeah, you can't solve everything I want to solve, or as a fan, I would like us to solve in this window. It's just not going to happen because whether you like it or not, we've took a step backwards in the summer, despite Voltemada doing brilliantly, despite Thiaw going way above expectation. Mike, who I know of, Mike keeps messaging me on Twitter because he's obviously seen that I wouldn't have signed Thiaw in the summer. So he reminds me every time Thiaw's played well, which is fairly regular this season, Mike. Like I said, from when we signed him, he's good on the ball, but he has errors in him. He made an error against Chelsea, but on the whole, Thiaw has been phenomenal. And do I sing Thiaw songs on match day? Absolutely. So look, Thiaw's been phenomenal. And he has improved this season. I only told you what I saw from him at AC Milan, where he was defensively lax at the best of times. But yeah, he's been absolutely tremendous, and long may that continue. He's been a real find for 30 million, which is these days a kind of neat and tidy fee, I suppose.
Yeah, certainly so. And I think it'll not be too long until you're singing "You On Wissa" songs, because I've been impressed from what I've seen from him. We can have grumbles about the price tag and then obviously the injury and how it came about, but I think what we've seen of him so far, a couple of goals, but just the way he stretches defenses, he's making such a big difference. And if he can keep fit, then I think he'll be a big reason why Newcastle United fire themselves up the table. I mean, on the goalkeeper, Sam, it's really interesting because if I could have one position that I could solve right here, right now, it would be a goalkeeper. I agree. I think there's been missed opportunities previously when Newcastle United could have spent 30, 40 million on a goalkeeper and haven't done so. I don't think James Trafford was the answer. I still don't think he's the answer. What I want to see is them spend big on a goalkeeper, and it's an instant upgrade. Will that happen in January? I don't think it will. I think if you're going to go for someone like Kobel, then that's going to happen in the summer. and you can do the groundwork now. You can get that go down that path, and so when the summer transfer window opens, bang, done and dusted. I think as long as we're quick on that, and that's one of the first signs made in the summer, and I think Newcastle have got enough with Nick Pope to get through until then. I think they need a defensive midfield. I know you said you want to see someone a bit more attacking, but I do think what they're missing at times is someone who's just disciplined and just sits. And people know I'm a big fan of Tyler Adams, and I mentioned him again a few months ago at the time when Bournemouth were flying high, and I said there's absolutely no chance he comes to Newcastle now. But Bournemouth have fallen off a cliff, and again probably one maybe for the summer rather than January, but a little cheeky bid for him or Ampadu at Leeds. I think could fill that job. Necessarily someone that is going to play week in week out, but someone that when Newcastle need that anchor can sit there and do the job. And you're huffing and puffing, but I always go back to what I say. It's not necessarily an upgrade in every position that you need when you go into the market. It's about building a squad. And I think that's with the likes of Tyler Adams and Ampadu, who I actually do think are really good Premier League players and could really make a difference to Newcastle United. Again, 2 deals which wouldn't happen this January, but certainly a position where I think if there's a bit of money to spend this January, they could be looking at to strengthen.
I'm just getting deja vu with you from the summer again.
Come on.
There are better alternatives out there elsewhere. I'm sure. Yeah, Tyler Adams has improved, and Ampadu again is in a good space at the moment. Leeds are doing really well. Doesn't mean I think he's the answer to our foibles, but I'm sure Bournemouth will regain their momentum for the FA Cup match at the weekend. I've no doubt about that. Yeah, I maintain our issues are in the final third. Yes, and I mean for this window, I'm pretty. I'm comfortable enough, and I know sort of fans are kind of getting frustrated with Botman's recurring injuries and this, that, and the other. If he can stay fit, he's one of the best in the league. But it's keeping him fit that are the issues. And there is a wider conversation to be had because alarm bells are ringing about Tino Livramento. I don't think that link to Man City is going to go away. And whether I'm putting 2 and 2 together and making 5, the fact that he's walked away and postponed contract talks is major alarm bells, which is why I've been looking into right backs as well. Or one of the Livramento ilk who can cover both roles, which Livramento has done superbly. It would be very, very sad to see him go if he does go in the summer. But again, I don't want to look at that now because I don't want to think of a world without Livramento in a Newcastle shirt. But I don't think a 6 or a defensive midfielder is a necessity in January. To be honest, I get that Tonali's slightly out of form, which is annoying. But when he's been on the pitch for us and not banned, he's been out of this world. So a little dip in form here and there is bound to happen at some point, as it does with 99% of players. Not everyone is Messi or Ronaldo. So there are options out there. There are cheaper options out there. There are, but it's like in goalkeeper. There are temporary fixes out there. The one thing I don't want to see is us being proactive and signing Ramsdale to a permanent deal, ready for the summer to go through for £12 million or whatever. That I don't want to see that.
Yeah, me neither. I don't think anyone will. And again, look, a lot of things you've talked about there, and a lot of things I've mentioned are towards the summer. I disagree. I think a defensive midfielder is a priority. I think far too often, and our listeners and viewers will be sick of me mentioning it, but the midfield just gets bypassed way too much, and clubs and good teams will punish you. So I do think it is a priority. Whether it'll happen, I don't believe it will. I think we're more likely to see younger players sign this January, if anyone. You mentioned the young Toulouse defender who, yes, has had a knee injury, he's had an operation, but he's believed that he's going to be back towards the end of the month, so that should be fine. I guess away from incomings, well, actually, no, let's talk about one man that we spoke about in the summer who I was a big advocate for, and that was Strand Larsen, who's had a terrible time at Wolves since the summer. He's kind of gone down the route. What was the Feyenoord striker called? Jorgensen, was it? Do you remember? And the one Newcastle were after under Rafa Benitez. He had a blistering kind of 18 months in over in Holland. I'm sure he was called something like Jorgensen, and Newcastle were linked to him in January. And then no deal came off, and then he just didn't score any more goals like
Oh,
ever again.
Jorgensen.
Yeah, that was right. He's kind of gone down that path, and now the whispers and rumours are that Newcastle still hold an interest. Steve Nixon was at the Wolves game in which they beat West Ham 3-0. He was actually on the bench with Strand Larsen. Now Newcastle went in with what, 55 million pounds in the summer for him. He's reportedly now available for 40 million. And despite being a massive fan of him, and I still think he's a good player, no, not for 40 million, not for 30 million. He's
Wow, you've
uh,
abandoned him.
I
Like you've
have.
abandoned Alanga.
I've not abandoned Alanga. Strand Larsen's too similar to Nick Voldemare. I just don't see how that would work. Tall striker, okay, probably hasn't got, well, he hasn't got the footwork of Voldemare, doesn't drop as deep, but in terms of ball into the box, you're aiming for a big man up top. What we need is someone a bit more of a speed merchant, someone who can do a bit of both. And I don't think Strand Larsen's got that pace. So for me, if you're going to spend 40 million on a striker, it's got to be someone better suited, who just doesn't do the same things as Voldemort does. So I don't want to see that happen at all.
Yeah, we don't have enough speed merchants, do we? Alanga, Gordon. Yeah.
No, but sorry, you're taking that out. I mean, it's different up top, isn't
To
it?
play off the last man and running behind.
Yes.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. I was being facetious. No, I get your point. Yeah, I don't disagree. On that front, I wouldn't be going back in for Strand Larsen. The only kind of time that I said I would want Strand Larsen was when it was looking desperate. Very desperate. Very, very desperate. Again, I still think there are a few options in Europe that at that time were more attractive, more appealing. But look, I think we've got a cracker in Voltemada. I really do, and how he has scored the goals he has scored this season is nigh on a miracle. Because he's having one chance per game, two chances per game. That is it. We're not creating anywhere near enough for him. And it was the same with Wissa. Wissa's done well. He has that nous and more sort of positional sense, more experience at 30 years of age, to get in the right channels, the right areas. But Voltemada showed that as well in that first half against Chelsea, where he did actually have more than one or two chances in a game and got two goals. So his conversion percentage is astronomical because we're not creating enough. We're not getting enough service from out wide. We're not getting enough support to him from midfield, from your Ramses, and Willock, who's done okay. Last season was poor for Willock. He's been okay this time around. Nothing more, nothing less. Obviously, should have got that goal at the weekend, but the game was already won. It's not like it was the difference between 1 and 3 points or whatever, or 0 points. I do think another forward just has to happen. And by forward, I mean either out wide or down the centre. Just the one name glaring at me is Akalouche from Monaco, who I highlighted in the summer alongside Kubo, who is still in dire need of a move because he needs a refresh. He's stagnating in Sociedad and has been for 12 months. He needs a move. Does Kubo, but Akalouche, he's got his cap for France. Monaco are down in 9th in Liga, and Akalouche will move this summer. And we have to be the ones he moves to. We've got to be either laying the groundwork now or making a cheeky bid in January. He can play on the right. He can play in a sort of 10 role, which yes, I know we don't play with, but with the players we've got and how we're shaping up, it wouldn't be a surprise to see us go with one potentially next season, as a bit of a refresh. So I would like him off the right hand side, because Gordon doesn't like playing there. Wow. I mean, let's cast our minds back to the January when we signed Anthony Gordon, and he was signed to play right wing. That went well. I feel so sorry for Harvey Barnes, by the way. Did you see the club put out on their YouTube every goal we scored in 2025? If anyone has a spare 53 minutes, because it's a very long video, we did score a lot of goals. How many big goals and big moments Harvey Barnes has had for Newcastle United, and he is so underappreciated. I think fans in general are really wised up to that in the last couple of months. But like, he scored some huge goals and consistent numbers. Yes, I know he can go missing in games at some point, and he's lethal off the bench. But he's had some tremendous moments, and Gordon, on the whole, really, really disappointing, really poor 2025. And I thought if that form continued into this year, he's in danger of losing his spot in the England squad. Not just the England team, but the England squad, because he's underperforming, very much so. There are glimpses, particularly in Europe, of course, but there are glimpses now. There's been some assists. Things are starting to come back for Gordon. But Barnes has been superb, and I'd be tremendously frustrated if I was Harvey Barnes, having to be that one that always gets shoved out on the right, where he's nowhere near as comfortable. But there you go. I think it's glaringly obvious we still need someone. I mean, Jacob Murphy still has the spirit of a 23-year-old, but he's the wrong side of 30 now. So how many years can he keep going? Again, he's had glimmers. There's a player who had a ridiculously good 2025. What a year Jacob Murphy had! Tremendous. Towards the tail end, it's not exactly happened for him. It's been consistent. He's been managing an injury here and there. I would still be aiming for someone, and that's the position I'd be strengthening if we could only have one this month. Yes, it's ambitious, but I'm only quoting our owners. We want to be number one. So some of the signings in the summer didn't scream out to me like we want to be number one.
I mean, again, I think you've got to look at it as long term. You know, you've got to put the building blocks in to get the house, for maybe a better use of a metaphor. Because yes, you want to be. I'd still argue, obviously the scouting staff and such. And this isn't because I pinned everything on Elanga being a success. It's just look on it. The scouting staff, the transfer strategy team, they don't just sign off these big numbers, these big deals on a whim. They do the homework, they do the stats, they look how players fit into the team, both with personality and ability. And look, there's still time for Ramsey and Elanga to prove their worth. And if they do, then there's two major bits of the foundation which will take Newcastle United to the next level. So again, we're going over all ground, but I don't think the window, come back to me at the end of the season, and then I might be agreeing with you. But right now, I'm going to say the jury's out for me, and I'm just going to keep faith with the decisions that they've made. We've mentioned, obviously, Tino. It would be good to try and persuade him to sign a new deal. Obviously, as you mentioned, talks have reportedly been put on hold. We need to see decisions made on Fabian Schär, decision made on Trippier, Botman as well. Would you would like to see him get a new deal? So, if incomings are limited this window, but it means getting some of the future sorted out of those guys, then that's all right with me. I think in terms of outgoings, I think Joe Willock will go. I think he'll end up going either to Crystal Palace or Leeds. Funnily enough, the two teams that Newcastle have faced one after the other. 20 million if Newcastle can get something around that, I think that would be all right. I think anyhow maybe wouldn't want to let him go without a replacement coming in, which then maybe says summer exit. Same with the Sula, Crystal Palace interested, Frankfurt interested, Villa reportedly still interested. But again, that doesn't happen, I don't think, even if it's a £30 million bid without someone else coming in, because I think Newcastle are getting through at the moment without Sula. But what they need is that third striker to help shoulder the responsibility alongside Johan Wissa and Nick Voldemort. But you could cash in on Asula. I think 30 million, everyone would say, yes, let's go to the bank, please. But then you have to go out and find a replacement. And 30 million doesn't maybe buy you anyone better. Let me know in the comments if you've got a name or two.
30 million doesn't buy you better than Asula?
Well, I mean, who are you buying for 30 million who's better?
What, as a kind of third striker? By the way, I don't think Asula to Frankfurt will happen in any way, shape, or form.
I mean, I think he stops until the summer, but I think that's probably, alongside Willock, the biggest possibility of something happening.
Frankfurt are about to sign Calamuendo on loan from Forest, and I don't understand why Forest haven't used him, because he was an absolute beast in Liga, and he was one of the names I put to you.
But there you go. I mean, you look at the chap that Aston Villa signed, Gessard. He had a tremendous season last season, and he's done absolutely nothing. So, the players who do well in League One.
Yeah, but Forest just didn't use Calamuendo. He played in like a game in Europe and he scored, and then like he just hasn't got a look in. I mean, some players, just managers don't fancy him or whatever, and I get that. And obviously not every transfer is. It's an absolute minefield. Of course it is. But I think that puts the mockers on Asula leaving. I'm with you. I don't think he goes this month.
So essentially, what we're saying, ladies and gents, nothing's happening.
No, I wouldn't go there. I think there's a potential for Willock to go. But will he go to Palace now? They've signed Brennan Johnson. How much money have they got spare? There's still constant speculation going on with Gehi as well, whether or not he could go this month before his contract runs out. Man City, of course. And now the new names in the frame. Yeah, I'd give Trippier another year. I hope we can keep Livramento, but it is hope rather than expectation. And yeah, I just pray that Botman can actually stay fit. Because if he can get back to that Sven Botman that we saw in his debut season here, he's one of the best, if not the best, in the Premier League. He was an absolute just Rolls Royce, wasn't he? So, yeah, I think Willock is probably the only potential one that can leave this month. But it's a big if, isn't it? So there's only really scope for one incoming, and it looks like it's going to be Mathali from Toulouse, which is a risk. But all transfers are. I'm not overly bogged down that he's coming back from injury, because otherwise you wouldn't have signed Livramento. I'm just baffled at the kind of position that we've targeted. Smith is the other one, of course. Keith Smith from Alkmaar. I would be pleasantly shocked if we ended up getting him. I think he'll go elsewhere. I would be amazed in a really happy way were we to end up with Keith Smith from Alkmaar. But again, there are alternatives. I like Nico Paz from Como, in a sort of similar role. And yeah, there's a few young wing backs out there that can do a job, that have really come to the fore at the start of this season, because particularly when we signed Livramento and Hall, there wasn't a great deal out there. But there are a few emerging. But again, they're risks, they're ifs, they're not guarantees.
And what I could see with Willock is maybe a loan deal with an obligation to buy. That seems to be the done thing these days. So don't rule that out with maybe Crystal Palace, sign him on loan and then permanently in the summer. Just a reminder, ladies and gents, this episode is sponsored by NordVPN. Do click the link in the podcast description box for a discount offer on your NordVPN plan. One subscription, 10 devices. There's no risk with a 30-day money-back guarantee. And a big thanks as well to F Pro, the trainer mat, which can enhance your footballing skills, helps you with your concentration and your focus, and it can fit the mat into pretty much any space in the house. Even works outside. It's connected to an app with drills there built by UEFA coaches to enhance your footballing talent. We've got up to 60% off if you head over to fpro.com/EIBW20. I asked some viewers and listeners pre-recording to get in touch with their realistic January transfer window. So I'm going to read through some of the replies, and then you can jump in at the end. We've got Tommy saying probably not going to do much as a club. It looks like it's going to be mid-table, upper mid-table. No threat or opportunity either way, worth splashing out over the odds for. Sid says he would like a left back. This would also mean we could allow Hall to play in midfield when necessary. Also would like to see a young right winger, and he'd send Elanga out on loan. And he would also like a third striker. Carl says the out would be good in a creative midfielder, perhaps a left back and a young exciting striker. Omar says we need another right wing as a must, someone creative that can play in the 10 as well. Barnes is ahead of both our current wingers on the right, tells us everything of the need. Would love an actual 6 and another left back prospect. If pushing the boat out, also left-sided centre back, Sel, Willick, Asula, and Lascelles. Daniel thinks it's going to be a quiet one, maybe one signing. Southern Geordie says full back cover has to happen. As a bonus, I'd love to flog Willick and Asula and bring in a versatile forward, 2 in, 2 out. James says an ideal signing would be an exciting winger who's also comfortable playing up top, especially if we sell Asula. Also need better cover at fullback. Ideally, a player would be someone who can play both sides. A dream would be an additional centre defensive midfielder to take the pressure off Tenali. Ethan says Wick and Asula out to generate some funds, and an experienced midfielder in, and a young defender, as we've mentioned, like the one from Toulouse. And he mentions Andrich as a potential experienced midfielder. Ganok says doesn't expect anything to happen, says nothing much. Ryan says backup right back, a young CDM, and a third choice striker would be nice. And Craig says keep hold of our best, put a rocket up the ones dropping in form, and save the money for the summer. Want to pick up on any of them, Sam?
Yeah, some really good suggestions in there, and some bad ones as well. No, joke. Most of them were really good. Alanga out on loan is an eyebrow raiser.
I think what we
Neat.
see, Sam, from the majority of those responses is it's the same positions. You know, we've had a couple there for a defensive midfielder, shouts for covered fullback, and a forward. So we can see where the fans at least think cover additional faces need to be added. Same 3 sort of positions.
Well, I think as well that maybe defensive midfielder cover has sprung to the imagination because the one who can do that at the moment is currently employed at right back and is doing a sensational job of doing so. Lewis Miley and Lewis Hall, they've been tremendous of late. Miley has all the powers in his arsenal to do that 6 role that you said that we need. But again, we don't have any right back cover at the moment. Kraft will probably leave. He's had his time. And he's probably been here longer than any of us ever would have expected. Yeah, Miley has been absolutely astronomically good. And he can be even better in that role we've discussed. It's not a priority for me. You made a good point before the sponsor read, actually, without even knowing it, about loan to buy. Why can't we utilize that in this window? Again, if we're thrifty enough and shrewd enough, I'm sure there's deals out there to be done. Yes, I understand January is a lot more trickier to pull these sort of deals off, but they're not impossible. Andrich for centre midfield was an interesting one. He's currently playing at centre half for Leverkusen, as we saw the other week, in their kind of back 3 slash system. Have I even been on since that Leverkusen game?
I don't think so. It's been a wee while.
Told you to look out for Grimaldo, didn't I? But anyway, what a player. Yeah, great trip, by the way. Thank you for asking. Yeah, they're all them sort of similar positions because we didn't sort it in the summer. And that's the harsh truth of the matter, which is why we're playing catch up. and it's a shame. Yeah, it was a really damaging summer. We all know why. And it's just rolled on into this season. But there's a chance with some fixtures coming up. We have got, after 2 good wins and potential for a couple more, if we are harbouring any ambitions to get back in the Champions League. 5th would probably do it again this season. But we're now in a position where these next games have to be wins. They can't really be draws. They have to be wins, and we're going to have to pick up points where maybe we wouldn't have expected to do so prior to that. But yeah, there's still opportunity to get back to Wembley. So there's still enough to go on. That's trying to be positive, but there are areas in our squad that are in dire need of enhancing. But Miley, Hall, tremendous. Chow, Faltamada, brilliant. More to come from Wissa, as you say. Barnes, underrated. Bruno, astronomical. But yeah, we need extra in the final third, not just from out wide, but from in behind in midfield as well. I don't think we're doing enough to support our striker, because it's all right saying Wissa's looking good, but he's still not getting any more chances than what Voltemade was getting.
Well, there we have it, ladies and gents. Sam, just sum up then what this January transfer window realistically looks like for yourself.
For me, well, I'm back at work Thursday morning, and then I've
Very
got
good.
about.
See, I didn't think I needed to explain that one. I was going to give you the benefit of the doubt, but fool me. What does it look like for Newcastle United, in your opinion?
In my opinion, we'll just get that young lad from Toulouse. The one to keep, the one to look at is probably Willock. If Asula goes, then Asula goes, but it won't be to Frankfurt. So whether you want to keep that risk of maybe selling him to someone else in the Premier League in case he does develop into a bit of a beast. He's got the physical stature and presence to do so, but I'm not quite sure he's got the ability. But yeah, I'm not saying it's the right thing to do, but it looks to be like the way we're going, and we're going to have to make do for the final third for, well, the duration, and how we rectify it and fix it in the summer, I don't know, because we're nowhere near the same threat in the final third as we were. Go back and watch that 2025 video. The club have put it out on YouTube. If you've got a spare hour, it's tremendous. You see us win a cup in there as well. It's amazing. But yeah, we don't hold anywhere near that threat that we did. So I can't understand why then we're going into a transfer window trying to strengthen the defence. So, I mean, there are loan deals to be. Oscar Bobb's available on loan. That'll do. I'll have a bit of that. But he'll probably end up in the Bundesliga. So Hendrick's already gone. There's no shame in utilising loan deals. We've done it with an average Premier League goalkeeper. So, like we say, why can't we utilise loan to buy? I don't know. But yeah, it's probably going to be quiet all round because teams are hiring managers.
There we go. Let us know in the comments your thoughts. What is the January transfer window priority for Newcastle United? How many players do you think will come in, and who potentially might go out for Newcastle United? Or do you think they've got enough to get through to the end of the season and hopefully still qualify for maybe the Champions League? Big thanks to Sam for popping on to the show. Big thanks to you guys for watching and listening, and we'll see you guys very soon.